So, on the occasion of receiving this beautiful map from your home, because it's been above your fireplace, hasn't it, at your house?
No, it was in my family room.
In the family room?
Yeah, I really haven't got a fireplace in the family room.
Right.
The fireplace is in the other part of it. The family room was built on before we ever came in, and a lot of my maps and things hang along there.
Okay.
In that bag I brought you something else. You can have a look at it.
Okay.
If you don't want to have it, it's okay, I'll take it home.
This has been a good friend of yours for a number of years.
Oh yeah, well everyone who comes and looks at it, and I have a copy of it, and when I've done talks around Newcastle, when people look at that, they're astonished.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because you see at a glance how things have changed, don't you? It's a history lesson in one
go.
page.
And one of these blocks was where you lived, on Mosquito
Well, we
Island.
live directly opposite little mangrove island.
Yeah.
And my sister and I, we used to go and row round that in my little flat green boat.
Yeah.
And it appears the first sign of that little mangrove isle, they're all marked reserve, is marked in one of the maps. Now, whose map was it? Colonel Patterson came up, and yeah, it's there. They've just got a little, it's there. Early on they marked
a little
it,
dot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then of course Walsh Island, it was built up from a number of little islands when they started dredging in the 1890s, and that's how Walsh Island was.
Yeah.
They took out that sandy patch. Well, that sandy patch landed on Mosquito Island. But in this bag I brought in, I brought you a photo showing you what we saw from the point of the island where we played. It was directly opposite the steelworks.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much. It will have a home here in
Oh,
the
that's great.
schoolmaster's house with the friends
No,
looking
I
after.
We
it.
said in flood strategy it'll be the first thing that goes off the island.
I don't want to be egotistical, but I am grateful that you're going to have it and display it, because you just have to look at it, and it's a history lesson, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is a history
And
lesson.
the people you get here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll be watching it over when I'm pushing up Daisy.
Well, thank you very much, Vera. You're
No,
very kind.
It's
And
my,
I was going to
it's my
say
pleasure. I thank
earlier, which I'm going to try to say now,
Hmm?
which is thank you for being such a key part of the
Oh,
volunteer
no,
effort
no,
for over 20
20 years.
years. And it's been such a good, friendly group, and we were just talking about Sue Rostis earlier, and that at a display at the Greening Center,
Yes.
Sue mentioned the volunteer group to Vera, and so we were able to have you as part of the volunteer group.
So drop a pebble in a pond, you never know what's going to ripple out, do you?
So, and it's just been, a remarkable group of people that are still.
Well, look at all of the wonderful people I've met. I've written you a special letter, and I say that all of you deserve recognition. It's so any recognition I have, I share it with you. I was told when I heard about the Lord Mayor was going to give you a luncheon, I said, I don't want them to do that. I'll ring up. You are not allowed to ring up and insult the Lord Mayor by refusing to have lunch with her. I said, I was brought up properly. I won't insult her. I'll decline very nicely. But I was still overruled.
So thank you very much. You're a wonderful person and
Inspiration.
Yeah.
very good.
And thank you for being such beautiful people. There's so many of them.
This will be perfect. So that will fit in this little spot here.
I must say Malcolm was very pleased.
See, that will fit in that spot very
We'll
well.
get the boys to hang it just the right height.
I do have a pale copy of it. It's mounted on a piece of 3-ply. When I did talks, I could take it with me. And people gasp when they see it. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So that's just fantastic.
We lived here, first of all there, and then here, and then over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Commander Henry Weston Tommy lost his brother in the wars in 1794. And he bought the land when it went up for sale
Yeah.
in October 1844. He bought 2 lots and he built a house. There were 10 buildings around it, but when we went there was only one house left with the front and back veranda. They'd taken the north side veranda, big Moreton Bay fig trees. Dad dug up a wonderful garden. It got us out of the Great Depression. He could grow anything. He sank a well and we got brackish water to water the vegetable because there was a 6-year drought in the East Coast in 1939 to 1945 and we had a big tank for drinking water. And then on Christmas Eve, 1941, just after Pearl Harbor, big heavy boots clomp on my door. I'm cooking tea for my brother. I'm singing, we always sang. And clump, clump, anybody there? I go to the door and there's a sergeant with 3 stops. Oh, good evening. Sergeant Bill Peatling. Was that a road I walked up? I nearly broke my leg. I said, oh, well, it's really just a cart. The farmers used to bring their milk down to the point and there used to be a ferry. And we believed the convicts made the road and they didn't pave roads in those days. But I said, did you notice the beautiful pink rose climbing over? They grew roses over the post and rail fence. And Mum and Dad, when they left Mosquito Island in 1951, when the reclamation, they took a cutting of the pink rose and they grew it at Warner's Bay. And then my sister took one and she's growing it up at Swan Bay, where her...
All right.
So things travel.
Like the shook vine.
Yeah.
I went to the school on Mosquito Island for a year and it closed down in 1932. It was just me, a little girl, and a lot of boys, but there weren't enough boys, so they had to close the school down in 19. And we went across in the milk launch to go to Mayfield East Public School. Hit the Black Wharf where the milk cans were loaded off for the milk truck to come up to Hexham. And then in 1942 I was offered a job in Mayfield, so I rode myself to work each day, 2.5 miles each way. My dad didn't want me to do it. You're not a strong swimmer, Vera. Anyway, we had a terrible fight, Dad and I said, I'm going to take it anyway. And I rushed out of the house and Mum and Mum attacks Dad. She says, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, driving your daughter. I'm not driving her out. She's running out of her own free will. I got in my boat and I rode down the Cedar Creek towards the steelworks. Dad's Anyway, I calmed down when I get to the mouth of the creek, just over from BHP gas holder, and I rest on when I come back. And I went to Mum, and Mum says, oh, don't worry, it'll be all right, Bill, we'll cook all his favourites for tea. So we did. Dad comes home, his duds rolled up to his knees, never wore boots, you could strike matches on his feet, they were so tough. And he sees we had a big round table under the chilli light. And here it is laden with rice custard and glamour pie and scones. And Dad looks at it, and he knows he's beaten. He grabs a scone, takes it home, and he said, oh, all right, you can go to work, I can't fight both of you. So the next morning I have to pass an exam. What will I do if the tide's against me and the wind? How will you chart your course? Because you're not a strong swimmer. Now, if you do ship water and your boat caps on, don't leave your boat. It's wood. Hang on to it and tread water, which I always felt safe. I didn't feel scared because my little flat-bottom boat, I could put 2 kids in the back and 1 in the front. And one morning, going across in a southeasterly gale towards the shelter of the BHP works near the gas, I lost an oar. It was very rough, so I lost the oar and I stood up, I couldn't, so canoeing in, there was 6 men working on the bank by the gas holder, and when I got closer they waded out, and dragged me and the boat in, turned the boat over, saw my feet were bleeding because I'd slipped under the wharf at home. My boat had been driven up under our wharf by the storm. So they took me into the BHP's medical centre. They bandaged up my feet and I walked out and got my bike at the Black Wharf and went to work. And McFadgen's were my employers. They were lovely. They were Maitland people. It's a produce store, you see, and they kept me for 4 nights at their house in Maitland Road, Mayfield, until the storm blew out.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately for you people, I was saved. Well, I'm alive to bash your ears.
Moments in history.
I don't mean to bash your ears, but
We love it. No.
so I needed a pair of pants with pockets because Gordon took off with my coat as he was minding me. So my daughter had bought
For all the
top
islands of joy.
and these in Hong Kong.
Right, in this
So I had these, got a good pocket,
Yeah.
and that's how it came about. And then it became a symbol of an aged woman growing old disgracefully.
Though you've had a good conservation activism before coming
Yes.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So you were prepared because you took on the machine driver down at Beacon Hill.
Oh, well,
Yes.
Poised to push over a scribbly
on the
gum, and she stopped him.
northeastern face of Beacon
Yes.
Hill, the highest point on the coast from Sydney.
Yes.
The next one is Tumbledown Dickett Mone, but they had a direction plate up there, and the bulldozers coming in, and people were dumping rubbish at the foot of the hill on Warringah Road. There was a big meeting in the Uniting Church Hall, and hundreds of people turned up. They had to have a microphone outside, and the Shire engineer and the politician, they're all sitting up there. And you've heard of Monty Wedd, the artist man. He built in William Street.
We'll have to Google it.
He's built the Monarch Museum.
Yeah.
You can see he had them in Narrowena in his garage, and we paid $1. And he sold up in 1986, come up and built his Monarch Museum. You can go and see them. Well, they're old friends. He's a marvellous artist. I've got his books. And we were served briefly together in the Manly Warringah Historical Committee, and then my husband died and my mother was ill, and I decided I'd sell up and come up and look after her. And she died a month after I moved in. So I did the right thing. I was her eldest child, and we were very, very close, and she was a remarkable woman. Both of my parents were remarkable people, what's known as great battlers.
Yes.
Well, I think her words of wisdom were something like,
Oh, ask no questions and you'll be told no lies.
it was his 7 children asking her questions all at one time, but then it was something about do good and don't be greedy.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, that was good.
What was it? Be good and do good and don't be greedy.
Oh,
And look
that was
after
my
the river.
father.
And look after the river.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was in Newcastle Hospital. They took him from Belmont, and I came up from Sydney, and sitting beside him we're talking, and the nurse scolded him because he kept pulling these tubes out, and she came over and said, "Oh, Mr. Pember, please keep them in. I'll get into trouble, you know." And he said, "Oh, sister, I'm sorry." But he said, "You know, we have our hassles, but I still loves you." So that became a saying in our family. "Oh, we have our hassles, but I still loves you." Anyway, so the last things he said to me was, "Keep an eye on the river and don't be greedy and do good." And they never had any wealth, but he believed in sharing wealth, and he shared the wealth of his gardening skills. He'd take stuff from Mosquito Island to his friends, and it showed people how to grow things. When he died, we had people coming up at the crematorium saying, "Oh, he showed me how to save my tree," growing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Mother was a very good dressmaker. She showed the women in the old days how to make clothes, how to unpick something that was used and make something new out of it. Making do and lasting out. I've written a story about it. They represented their generation.
Yeah.
That's how they, not just my parents, there were many people like that. And we owe them a great deal. We owe them a great deal. Because they struggled hard. We're determined to get a decent social security system in this country. And you only got to see the hassle over getting Medibank. Now, who would be without Medibank today?
Exactly.
Nobody. So that's the Australian people. They're just members of that Australian people who want to create a fair go and a better land. So I better shut up. I am now bashing your ears.